Welcome to Husker Storm Blog. This is week 11 of college football already. Election night tonight as I put up this video, as I record this video and put it up. But let's talk about college football. So we did have two really key games last week. Alabama taking care of business against LSU in unimpressive fashion. LSU is a lot better than I thought they were. Zach Mettenberger saved his best game of his career for Alabama. Alabama didn't answer any questions for me, actually. They actually created more questions for me. So I wasn't super impressed by them. The amount of yards that they allowed to LSU is really staggering to me. But the same could be said to Oregon. Oregon did put up some points and against a weak USC offense, but the USC offense, which is a very good offense, they've got two of the best receivers in the nation, one of the best quarterbacks in the nation, and of course the ground game that feeds off that passing game. Both of those teams won and and took care of business. And neither really, jumped out me. That neither of their wins were impressive or anything. It's not like Kansas State and what Kansas State did to some teams, but still, Kansas State's doesn't have the offense nor the defense that Alabama or Oregon has. But Kansas State might be the more complete team. They have the special teams to go with a solid defense and a solid offense. Oregon has a great offense. A okay defense, and special teams has always been shaky for them. They do have a good punter. Alabama, special teams is okay for them. Kicking's a struggle there. They've got a great defense, and their offense could do better than it did last week, to say the least. Now, it was against LSU, but I want to see more from A.J. McCarron, and the only other team I'm going to talk about, reviewing last week, is Nebraska. Another great comeback on the road. Didn't think it was going to happen. I said it was over after Michigan State got that touchdown and they were up 10, 24-14. But another turnover after that in the red zone that should have been a pick six, but wasn't, erased by a penalty. And Nebraska's about to score and make it a 3-point game, maybe make it a 7-point game, a one-possession lead at best, and they turn the ball over again on the 5-yard line. Well, Taylor Martinez did. And that fumble by Taylor Martinez, just a crazy up-and-down game, but the Cardiac Huskers got it done. Taylor Martinez is clutch. You got to deal with his ups and downs. But when he's up, he's people question his leadership. But I don't know how you could now. I mean, he's led Nebraska to its two biggest comebacks, and I think it was his biggest comeback on the road against Northwestern. And then this week again, 2 touchdowns with 8 minutes to go, and they carved up that Michigan State defense, especially on the ground. 313 yards to defense that only allows 91. Because Nebraska's fast, and when they get to the edge, their wide receivers do a good job setting the edge. Kenny Bell's an amazing blocker. Whoops. Sorry about that. He's a great blocker. And as we saw, Nebraska really can run on anybody. And they're going to continue to do it. And look for them to run the table. And by run the table, I mean win the rest of their games, the Big Ten Championship, and potentially a Rose Bowl. I can see them beating anybody unless it's Oregon. Notre Dame, that'd be an interesting game. I'd be excited to see that. Probably the best front seven in the nation, if not the best, against one of the best rushing attacks in the nation. And Nebraska would be healthy then. Nebraska was without Rex Burkhead and they racked up that much yards. But that was a crazy game, and Nebraska was able to take care of business there. Now, regarding that game, that's going to be my talk of the week. Pass interference penalties in the Big Ten. I remember Nebraska coming to the Big Ten The big deal about the Big Ten, a big deal about the Big Ten was the fact that they let the defenders play. They let them play. They would let the defender and the receivers. They would allow for some interference. I don't know how you're gonna word that. They would allow them to play. That's all you can really say. But Saturday's game against Michigan State, it hasn't just been that game. Nebraska's been picked on big time for ticky-tack calls. Now, Nebraska is going to have their fair share of pass interferences. They're a physical team. They're going to play press coverage. They're going to get their fair share of holding calls, defensive holdings, defensive pass interference. It's going to happen. But some of these were ridiculous, especially the last call. The officiating was pretty poor that whole entire game. Both teams got a touchdown that should have resulted in field goals. But I've seen this week after week, and now I haven't checked other games outside of the Nebraska game. I haven't really seen a whole lot. I haven't watched a whole lot of the other Big Ten games because really they're not that fascinating. But the Nebraska games, both teams are getting called, especially Nebraska. Now, I'm not going to say it's the refs have it out for Nebraska or anything. No, it's just I just feel like they're just being a little ticky-tack on some of their calls, and they're not letting them play as much as I thought they would, or as much as they were last year. But we'll move on from that to my top 25. I've got Bama at 1, K-State at 2, Oregon at 3. So Oregon jumped Notre Dame. Notre Dame's now at 4. Ohio State sneaks in the top 5 at 5. Georgia's at 6. Florida's at 7. LSU's at 8. I got Florida State at 9. 10, I've got South Carolina. 11, I've got Louisville. 12, I've got Clemson. 13, I got Texas A&M. 14, I got Oklahoma. 15, I got Oregon State. 16, I got UCLA. Huge win over U of A. And I've got 17, I've got Nebraska. 18, I got Stanford. 19, I got Texas. Not as bad as people thought they were, but not as good as people thought they were going to be at the beginning of the year. 20, I got Louisiana Tech. They need to be a little bit more impressive with their wins. Can't struggle with University of Texas San Antonio in the first half for me to really credit you with anything. 21, I've got USC. They haven't beat anybody, but they're still a solid team. I mean, they haven't beaten anybody with winning record besides Washington. Michigan 22, 23 Northwestern, 24 Toledo, 8-1. Only losses to an okay U of A team. Rutgers at 25. They're there because there's nobody else you can really put there. The BCS Bowl. So I got Nebraska versus Oklahoma. Why Oklahoma, you say? Well, Stanford, Oregon State play this week. I think Stanford wins that game. So that would result in Oregon State getting their second loss. Then Oregon State has to play Oregon. That's going to be a third loss. A 9-3 Oregon State will not be high enough to get into the top 14. And Stanford, they've still got to play Oregon. That's going to put them at 9-3. They've also got to go to UCLA. So there's a good chance they could be 8-4. The only team that I see with the chance is UCLA. UCLA, if they find a way to win out, that's the only way. They're going to have to win out and then lose to Oregon in the Pac-12 championship. Because them at 10-3 maybe gets in the top. In the top 14, but I don't think that happens. I think they fall to either USC or Stanford. But I think it's going to be Oklahoma. I think the Rose Bowl is going to have the opportunity to put Notre Dame or Oklahoma. They're going to take Oklahoma, I think. And hey, it's going to be classic if this happens. Tradition, whatever. I mean, Nebraska, Oklahoma, that's tradition. Rose Bowl, Big Ten, Pac-12, whatever. Nebraska, Oklahoma was the greatest rivalry for 25 plus years. Fiesta Bowl, K-State versus Notre Dame. I think Oregon passes K-State if they win out. Sugar Bowl, Florida versus Clemson. I think the Sugar is going to choose Florida over South Carolina, Georgia, and LSU. And Clemson will be selected because the Big Ten doesn't have anybody. So they got to go somewhere, and the only place they can really go is the ACC because there's no non-AQ teams. Florida State, Louisville in the Orange Bowl. Now I have heard talk about Louisville possibly in the Fiesta Bowl. Fiesta Bowl seems pretty interested. Now they The only way I would see that happening is if Oregon State gets. The only way I could see that happening is, if Notre Dame gets selected to the Rose Bowl, because they don't want Oklahoma, Kansas State, and I don't know if they like Clemson that much. Maybe Clemson goes to the maybe Louisville goes to the Sugar. Who knows how high Louisville could go? I'm not sure. Their fan base, it's probably a little it's a little smaller than Clemson. For some reason, the Fiesta Bowl is interested there. National championship, of course, Alabama versus Oregon. Heisman, Colin Klein still the front runner. Kenyon Barner put himself at second. Monte Teos at third. As long as the team keeps winning, he's not going to fall any further than that. Whoops. Braxton Miller at fourth. A.J. McCarron at fifth. A.J. McCarron's got to put up better numbers for me to really get excited. Florida State at Virginia Tech. The last final hurdle for the Seminoles in ACC play as they go to Blacksburg, Virginia, to face a disappointing Hokie team, a team that just straight sucks. This one stays close for a half, but the Seminoles, they want some oranges, 45-20. K-State at TCU. This could be interesting depending on Colin Klein's health. I haven't heard anything, and I don't know, he'll probably play. If he does play, this is what I'm basing it off. I think Kansas State rolls the Horned Frogs 49-23. If he doesn't play, this is a huge slip-up opportunity here and a huge upset. Oregon State at Stanford. If the Beavers can go into Palo Alto and get a win, their Rose Bowl chances will greatly increase. But a loss will put that pretty much at zero with the Ducks looming at the end of the year. Stanford's front seven is going to cause some issues for an offense that is struggling, and I think they do enough offensively. The Cardinals do, and they keep their Rose Bowl hopes alive with the 20-16 victory over the Beavers. ASU at USC. Both of these teams struggled offensively, and the Trojans' poor defensive play will let this one stay close for about 3 quarters. But the Trojans and Barkley will throw away with this one, I guess, not really run away. 45-35, I got the Trojans in that one. Mississippi State at LSU. I think this is going to be the third straight ugly loss for the Bulldogs. LSU is going to be pissed for giving up that game against Alabama, and they're just going to smash Mississippi State. Look for Mettenberger to build off his best performance of his career, 31-10. Tigers roll could be even worse than that, depending on how well that offense plays. West Virginia at Okie State. 4 straight for the Mountaineers, and a promising season. Looks like a disaster now. And they'll be fighting for bowl eligibility, but hey, they play Kansas at the end of the year. 48-42, I take the Cowboys in that one. A&M at Bama. This looks like a great matchup for A&M. They go into Alabama after they had to go to Baton Rouge. After Alabama had to go to Baton Rouge, Alabama's beat up, and they're facing a team that has played really well against against the 3 ranked teams they've played so far. They just smashed Mississippi State. Johnny Manziel is a stud. Their defense is playing well, and I expect the Aggies to be ready to pull the upset. And it's going to depend on how Nick Saban can get his team ready for this one. I think he does. Nick Saban's a great coach. His team's not going to come out super flat. I think they come out flat enough that A&M builds a lead. But McCarron, I think, gets another late touchdown to get his team to win. 20-16, could be higher scoring. That's what I've got right now. Might be in the 20s, who knows. Penn State at Nebraska. No mental collapse for the Huskers. They've had 3 big wins in a row, 2 big comebacks. They must stay mentally ready for this one. They can't come out flat. I think this team is the strongest team mentally that Pelini has had, as shown by those comebacks. We already know what the Nebraska offense can do. It can score, and it'll score on anybody. The question is, can the Nittany Lions produce enough offense to stay in this one? I think they have enough success on the ground to help with that passing game, because they can't just be one-dimensional against a very good pass defense in Nebraska, one of the best in the country. Look for Penn State to hit a deep pass in this one. But Nebraska won't allow them to pick them apart for the whole entire game. And the Huskers wear down the Penn State defense to get a nice win, 27-17. Northwestern at Michigan. Must win for both teams if they want to stay with Nebraska. I like the Wildcats to keep it close for a half, but Shoelace comes back with a huge day and keeps his Wolverines' hopes alive in the Legends, 35-23. Wisconsin at Indiana. Call me crazy, but I'm calling an upset here. I think Indiana is going to be 1 game away, or it'll be 2 games away. 2 games away from playing in the Big Ten Championship. I think they put up enough points in the first half to build a lead that is too deep for this Badgers offense to climb back into. Hoosiers with the upset, 30-28, and they're, I believe, a game away from being bowl eligible, maybe 2, not exactly sure. But they could very easily find themselves in the Big Ten Championship game. So that's it for this week. Check back next week, as hopefully we'll have some upsets and something that'll shape up this race. Otherwise, it could be an interesting 14 playoff. Well, there won't be a 14 playoff because that's still 2 years away. But what could have been is what we'll be thinking potentially at the end of this season, just like last year. But thanks for watching.